Hey, welcome back to another episode of Fantasy Fiction Friday. I'm your host, Genevieve Clavell. Today we're going to be continuing on with my anthology of short dystopian fairy tales titled The Lady of the Lily. We're going to be moving on to Nichole's tale. Very excited. Um, this is the part of the story that we really start to get super dark. Not that we haven't been dark, but we're getting dark. So I'm going to read as much as of it I can. The next two chapters I'm going to have to skip over because they are not safe. The Reign of Bernard V. Nichole's tale. I pushed a string of my crimson hair out of my eye, sighing in frustration. Oh, why would this strand of hair not stay in my braid? It plagued me. I suppose it was not my hair causing me the frustration. Sometimes it was the little things that pushed me over the edge. I bent over to pull the sheets off the bed. I pulled harder than necessary, and a large piece of fabric snapped off the corner of the bed. It flew with speed and slapped me across the face. It's wet. Why is it wet? The sheet was soaked with urine. A pungent, sour stench hit me, and it brought tears to my eyes. No, I was not crying. I refused to cry. I was disgusted, for sure. The king entered from his morning bath. His guards supported him, helping him walk. He had grown gaunt, frail, and weak with age. I flung the fresh sheet on his oversized, overstuffed bed, struggling to get it tucked in under the mattress. As weak as the king was, I was weaker. The bed proved to be far too big for me. I climbed on it, trying to pick up the edge and tuck the sheet under. Why is the bed not made yet, girl? The king snapped at me. Jumping off the bed, offering apology. A red-hot sting ran through my face with the strike of the back of the king's hand. This blow had left my pale pink skin reddened. I could feel the heat of it. A swarm of emotion burned through my thoughts. Don't hit me. Don't cry. Don't cry was the loudest. With one hand on my cheek and the other across my chest, I backed away. Flutter on now. I expect you to work faster tomorrow. King Bernard dismissed me. Flutter? Could he not see the horrendous scar across my right wing? I couldn't flutter or fly if I had wanted to. Clearly, Fae like me were invisible to those of his kind. I'd rather be invisible. The only time I had felt seen in my 20 years of life was when I was being seen. Invisible was better. Strive to be invisible, unseen, unnoticed. My head hung low. I took 2 steps back and I turned to go. I struggled with the doorknob behind my back, in a desperate need to leave. Once I was in the hall, the door slammed behind me and I fell back against the wall, straining to catch my breath. The door opened and wet sheets hit me with a thud, dripping over my body. I just lost half a day's work. I gathered up the sheets, shuffled my feet across the floor, and descended the grand stairs to the laundry. Nikki! The mistress of the laundry called me. She was a tall, slender woman. Pretty, I thought to myself. Though I thought all the Fae were lovely to behold, at least in aesthetics. Nichole, I muttered. My voice was very audible. I hated being called Nikki. My name was Nichole. Why did they all refer to me? Why did they all refuse to call me by my given name? I would never understand. I guess it was like the string of hair resting on the bright red spot left by the king's rampage. It mattered little other than serving as a distraction to the larger of my problems. I handed her the sheets. Ugh, they smell. She pulled her head back and glared at me, as if it was my fault. The king pissed his bed again. A shrill smile crossed her face, and she let out a boisterous bout of laughter. Her apprentice joined her in the laughter as they mocked the king's disposition. You shouldn't say such things about the king, I said. Quiet filled the room as they both locked their eyes and gazed on me. I'm trying to protect you. If rumors got back to him, there would be no telling what would happen with his wrath and retribution. I grazed my fingers over my cheek. He's not a nice man. The king doesn't give two shits about what we have to say. We're nothing to him, she retorted. She wasn't wrong. The same could be said of the entirety of the court. They didn't care about us. Unless, of course, we were gossiping about them. I found myself at the door to the king's bedchambers. I spent more than a moment searching for the courage to enter, hoping beyond hope that the king would be anywhere other than his bedroom. After several deep breaths, I entered with a stack of freshly laundered and folded sheets. Relief filled me. I could finally breathe. He wasn't there. I pulled the bedding off quickly. More wet sheets. The king was not doing well. I hoped he would die soon. I mean, I would never say that out loud, but I hoped he was not there because he was dead. Struggling to get the fresh bedding on as quickly as I could with fresh sheets that were stained from the former's day urine. At least they smelled fresh and floral. The scent mixed with the soiled sheets from last. The door to his bath just opened as I had begun to replace his purple velvet blankets. Wait, girl, what is that? Pointing at the large stain on the freshly made bed. Were these even laundered? He scolded. I took 2 steps back for every step he took towards his bed. His guard was holding him by the elbow with each step. He wobbled and took a moment to catch his footing. Yes, I responded with a bend of the knee, looking down, as looking him in the eye was a sign of disrespect and strictly forbidden. Do it again, he said breathlessly, almost wheezing between each word. I had to leave his bed unmade. There was no other option, and I feared I would lose my job over it. There were not many opportunities for a girl like me. I couldn't fly, so I couldn't work the fields, and I refused to sell myself, not that anybody would want me. I had few choices: maid, laundry, and kitchen. I'd taken all of the jobs. I would work them all in one day when the opportunity arose. But working for the king directly paid well. I needed the job. I took the fresh sheets bundled with the soiled ones back to the laundry room. He insists we remove the stains. I need them today. As of now, he has no sheets, I told the mistress. I can't get the stains out. It's impossible, she responded. She wasn't wrong. We'll wash them and I'll take them to dye then, I said. I need them before night falls. Give me an hour, maybe 2, she promised with a shake of the head. 2 hours. I had 2 hours to kill. I went to the kitchens asking for any work. After missing half day's rations the day before, I couldn't afford to miss 2 more hours today as well. Rejected. No work. So I made my way to the coffee shop and sat on the hardwood bench, tapping my fingers on the table in front of me. Should have just gone home. 2 women sat next to me, gossiping loudly. I had not meant to listen, but I couldn't help but overhear. Someone had broken into the silo? They were stealing food? Oh, I wish I had the courage and confidence to pull off such a feat. Those caught stealing faced an array of punishments. They were forced to work off the debt, while others would be sent to prisons outside on the edge of the aviary. No, if I tried, I would be caught, and with my luck, I would receive the maximum punishment. Prison. No, I would be hung. Okay, maybe not, but maybe. Either way, it was not worth the chance. I noticed a man sitting across from me eating alone a pastry. It was flaky and covered in powdered sugar that left small flakes on his dark shirt. What I would do for those crumbs, my stomach grumbled. I was sure the girls next to me could hear it. I felt like a rock was sitting in there. It was nothing but air, to be sure. I'd not eaten anything in 2 days. I stared, mouth watering, at the pastry when my eyes found their way to his eyes. He was glaring at me like I was a freak. I threw my head on top of my crossed arms on the table and kept it there, waiting for the laundry to be done. Desperation seething through my body. So hungry. After what seemed like an eternity, I lifted my head and raised my hands, crossing my hand over the other in a deep stretch. I exhaled, and my head swirled. Black dots filled my vision. Whew. Feeling dazed, like I was going to pass out, I made my way slowly to the laundry where I found the blanket and the sheets, both sets folded and ready to go. I shuffled with them in my arms to the dye shop, and I loved the smell of the dye shop. The great oak overall smelled delicious. We used flowers for most things, especially dye. I need the stain to be matched or covered, I explained to the man who ran the shop. He was tall and thin, with narrowed eyes and a thin smile. What's the stain from? He asked. Urine, I responded. Are you the king's bedmaid? He asked. My face blushed with embarrassment. Yes, sir, I answered. And these are the king's sheets. Smiled across his face. Great. He and the laundry ladies would have plenty to gossip about. Whatever. I should not care. It had nothing to do with me. I was just doing my job. I could not cover it without going several shades darker, he explained. Fine. But I need them before sundown, I all but begged. That's a big order. He could see trepidation and desperation across my face. Let me see what I can do, he assured me. You have any work for me while I wait? I asked. I really wanted to buy dinner that night. No, it's a one-person job, he sounded apologetic. The sheets were dyed a mahogany red, made of a rich color palette, one fit for the king. He saved my job. My shelter tax was due in 2 days' time. And if I worked full days, I would have just enough work vouchers to cover it. And since the king had declared it was illegal to be homeless, my shelter tax had to come first. I couldn't go home to my parents. I would not. I had left when I was 12, just after I had healed from the attack. Okay, gotta skip that part. You understand, right? Like I said, I'm gonna try to get through this story. The next two, no, we definitely won't be able to read on here, but they are available on KU and Amazon if you want a physical copy. Let's move on. I'd slept in my clothing, and it showed. There was nothing I could do. My only other dress was far worse than this. Pressing down the wrinkled dress, I found myself in the kitchen. I don't know why I'd opened the cupboard doors. What was I expecting to find? There had not been food in there for days. Once we had been given water, in a limited amount, but every Fae had water now. We needed to work to obtain it. Under Bernard's rule, nothing came free. I took a comb, trying to force it through my tangled hair. Ouch! I gave up quickly and forced the tangled mess into a braid tied on top of my head. A single strand fell into my face. I wanted to cut it off, but like everything else in this place, it was illegal for me to do so. Women had to have long hair. Ugh. I was so hungry. A bell died to the doorknob rang as I walked into the tax office. A bell tied to the doorknob rang as I walked into the tax office. I stood at the back of a long line of Fae. Great, this is going to take most of the day. I was 2 work hours short. I hoped they would let me make a payment plan or maybe offer a discount, but no. After waiting to be called for over 3 hours, I was informed that I could have 2 days to pay the 2 hours I owed, but there would be a 10-hour fine. Okay, I told myself. 2 days was enough to work the 12 hours needed. Food and water would just have to wait just 2 more days. 2 days later, I had it paid with a little left over. Not much, but enough for half a loaf of bread that I devoured in 3 bites. Nothing had tasted so delicious all of my time. than those three little. My door slammed open. It split off, and the other side left hanging by only the top bracket that had kept it attached. I let out a startled scream. My heart thumped. Three of the king's guards entered my room with a fury. What was going on? I mean, they had every right to enter, but they could have knocked. What did I do? One of the men grabbed me by the arm and pulled me out. They were walking fast, so fast my short little legs couldn't keep up. They felt weak. I trembled in panic, and I failed to keep up with their stride. He dragged me down the hall and up the stairs, and tears burned my eyes, and I wanted to ask why. Where were they taking me? But no words would dare escape my mouth. We entered a dark room. The guards threw me into a chair and tied my hands behind my back and strapped my legs to the legs of the chair. My eyes flew around the room wildly. Why was I in the king's chamber? Why had I been brought here? My pupils dilated. Not blinking, the tears dried. The fear did not subside. The large hand squeezed my jaw, and I instinctively forced it closed. I will break it, the guard exclaimed in a loud growl. Take two, huh? I will break it, the guard exclaimed in a loud growl. I forced open my mouth, and a wooden gag forced my tongue down, causing me to gag. He strapped it behind my head. Okay, see, here's the thing. These three chapters go into devices of. So I can't read this part either. And it's kind of a challenge because I really want to finish this episode. And the next two, would be chapter 12 and 13, or story 12 and 13. I definitely can't read. But let me scroll through and see where I can pick up for you, because I don't want to leave you hanging. Just know that basically they're putting a scold's bridle on her. So the chapter ends after all we've skipped. I'm sorry. It's on KU. If you have KU, you can read it for free. It's the Ladies of the Lily, Dystopian Tales of the Fae. So let's just conclude this story, shall we? By royal decree. If we can, if I can read. Oh, what a great episode today is, huh? Okay, take two. By royal decree, any woman found guilty of gossip will face the bridle. Gossip? I hadn't gossip. I had not faced any accusation, ever given a chance to defend myself. Gossip. The wet sheets. The rumors must have reached the king, and he thought it came from me, I concluded. I found myself riddled with humiliation that I could not hide. My stomach churned, and I wanted to go home and hide. I could not. I needed to work. I needed to eat. And I felt so weak. And to top it off, I lost my job. I had really thought that after that display I would still be permitted to clean up after the king. I searched for work, but my face was plastered everywhere. Nobody would hire me. I knew what I had to do. I couldn't go another day without food. I would not go there. I would not face them ever again. What the king had done was just as awful. But it didn't compare. Did it really compare? No. No, I would not go to my father, who would die of starvation first. And if I did not eat soon, that was a probability, not hyperbole. I stepped into the carpenter shop. My brother worked over a large project. His eyes were covered in safety glasses. He took no notice of me, and I took none of him. It was what lined the walls that caught my attention. And they wouldn't let go. Hung on the walls were dozens of those awful contraptions they called the bridle, each with a price tag of 1 hour work voucher. 1 hour was all it would cost to humiliate your wife, or your daughter, or your aunt, or your grandmother, or any woman. That stuck with me. It was important for some reason that I didn't fully understand. Any woman caught gossiping could be silenced for the low, low price of just one workout, less than a loaf of bread. I all but What the? I all but screamed. Sister! He looked up and actually smiled. I pointed to the walls. Questioning expressions crossed my face. You should not have been gossiping about the king. What did you think was going to happen? Nicholas asked, pushing a long strand of pink hair from his face. I wasn't. It wasn't me, I exclaimed. And who would think of that? I pointed to the wall. What depraved mind could imagine such a thing? Me, he said with pride gleaming from his bright blue eyes, and his voice sang with glee and pride. And check this out, he showed me the blueprints of a project that he'd been working on. It was a chair with a hole in the middle on a stilt or some kind of spike. What is that for? I asked. My head was reeling from the feelings of confusion mixed with hunger. Doubt I really wanted to know, but for some reason I had to. If one needs to put a woman in her place, he straps her to the chair and then hoists her up, and she stays there for as long as needed. They put a hole to put a pot to pee under, so there's no mess to clean up when her punishment is done. A pot to piss in. What has this world become? I shook my head. I have a little conversation that I can't read. I'm sorry, you guys, this sucks. Okay. We'll still have to cover our bodies. It's the law. Was that seriously the only protest I could come up with? I had heard a tale of a fae named Q, and their commentary on the signs of the time. No, I had never read any of those pamphlets. I could hardly read. But I wondered what Q would have to say about all this if he were still alive. What brings you here? I haven't seen you in a while. My brother interrupted the thoughts that had taken hold of my mind, leaving my body locked in time with shock and bewilderment. I cocked my head to the side. What? To what do I owe the honor? His arms stretched out to embrace me. A hug. A hug. His strong arms wrapped around mine, pinning them to my side. I need work. No one will hire me, I whispered onto his shoulder. Perfect! I have several orders for the chair and the bridle. I could use your help. I spent the rations. My brother paid me on food and a bottle of mead. I'd considered wine, but wine was much more expensive, so I settled for mead. I needed it to numb me and settle my mind and ease my pain. My feet were blistered from the incident and my shoulders sore from the day's work, but my mind needed it the most. I wanted to forget. I needed to forget, if only for a moment. As I left early for work the following morning, the posters were being hung. I didn't need to read the announcement. I could see it in the eyes of all those around me. The sadness and the joy. The king had died. His funeral would be in 2 days. Great, more work lost. Everyone was expected to be in attendance, and no work was done on the day of a royal burial. My white dresses were dirty. It had been over a month since I could afford water to wash them, or myself for that matter. I couldn't attend in a dirty dress. I was already facing a silent ostracization. My day's rations would have to be spent on water, leaving just enough for half a loaf of plain bread. At least I was eating something, and for that I was grateful. On the day of the funeral, my dress was still damp. It smelled musty and slightly clung to my curves despite being too big. I had lost weight since I wore it last. I managed to comb the tangles from my hair, and I ripped a few clumps on the process, but somehow managed to create a long braid, minus the single strand that, of course, stuck to my face. I held my head down and refused to speak to anyone. I'd always tried to be invisible. Since the bridal incident, I had stopped speaking at all, even to my brother, as we worked. I didn't think I would find the strength or the courage to speak a word again, not to anyone, not even myself. Now, Rain the 6th was to be crowned in 5 days. I hoped he would be better than his father. I hoped he would overrule so many decrees and ease our taxes. I hoped he would be able to thrive. I hoped we would be able to thrive. Under Bernard V, we had fought to survive. Rain the Fourth was not a young man. His oldest son, Fleur III, was older than that, but not by much. I may one day see his reign if I was granted the ability to live that long. I hope Rain will make it possible. The future held hope. I hoped these horrific contraptions would be brought to an end. I hoped enough would be available to all, and none of us would ever go hungry again. I hoped for a great many things. Felt good. Hope. Thank you so much for joining me today on Fantasy Fiction Friday. Make sure to join me next time. I swear it's quiet when I start to read, and then a lot of people in the house right now. It will calm down and my videos will get a little more better. But for now, join me next time where we're going to pick up, like I said, we're going to skip chapters or stories 12 and 13. We're going to go into chapter 14, The Royal Reign of Fleur the 6th, Victorious Tale. I like to kind of read it. I want to read it right now. It's been a while since I've read this. I really love this story. I love the ladies of the lily. As dark and disturbing and dystopian as they are. Anyway, until next time, remember, you're valid, you're ready, and you're loved. Bye!